Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, and continuing with last week's trend, a look at wine by the glass. There are times when the whole bottle isn't what you need, you just want a single glass, you're driving, you're having lunch and you've got a busy afternoon, maybe you just simply feel like one glass of wine. Not something I can really identify with, but I'm led to believe it does happen occasionally. The challenge with getting that single glass of wine on a wine list is that all too often it's a very limited array of options, sometimes quite expensive. Often you get the sense that they're from the very bottom end of the wine list, and you just struggle to get something that you really feel delivers what you're looking for. So what I was doing last week, doing this week, and again over the next week or two, is dropping in on a few establishments and trying to find some wine that I think fits the bill for that one glass that delivers quality at a reasonable price. And today I'm back home, so to speak. I used to live just up the road from here in Cape Town. I'm at the Southern Sun at Newlands. I spent a lot of time here as a journalist when I was still a sports writer, interviewing rugby teams. I remember a great interview with Brian O'Driscoll about what was then probably the worst moustache in the history of international rugby. One of many I did, but now I'm doing something a lot more relaxed, and that's trying out some wine. And what I've done, as I did last week, is very particularly have a look at the wine list and choose stuff that is on it. Now it's very easy. Hi, it's Dan from Dan Really Likes Wine. I'd like to try some wine. Quite often people give you all sorts of stuff that normally you might not get. But I made it very clear everything I'm trying is from the wine list, and that is the case at the Southern Sun Newlands here today. So the wine's a simple selection. It is 2 whites, 2 reds. I've got a couple of Chardonnays, a Pinot and a Syrah. They're all wines, not unexpectedly, at the more entry-level space, but they're all wines that I've had before and by and large I have enjoyed. So let's have a look at them. And the first of these is from an estate that comes with considerable pedigree, because Newton Johnson won, if I've got the terminology right, Emerging Winery of the Year in the latest Platter Awards. And it's a winery I've got a very soft spot for in the Hamiltonada Valley. Their Newton Johnson Family Vineyards Pinot Noir is just glorious. They're one of the few guys in South Africa to make an Albarino, and then they're making this. Their more entry-level Chardonnay. It's called the Félicité by the Newton Johnson team, who are really at heart surfers, but when they're not surfing they do make some rather nice wine. So this has been poured for me by the glass by the very helpful sommelier here in Newlands, and it is a fairly young Chardonnay. They aim for a style, not unexpectedly, for Hamiltonada that's very crisp, not too much wood on it. In fact, I don't think there's any wood on this at all. I think it's unoaked or largely unoaked. It certainly has that nose. Quite fruity, almost apple-ish. Nice and pleasant aroma. And that's not too bad. It's maybe ever so slightly too harsh, simply because it's very, very young. But if you're having it by the glass, chances are you're having it with something to eat. And I think with a bit of food, that might take some of the little edge of acidity out of this, and it'll soften pretty soon as well. And that's about 50 or 60 rand a glass. If you look at what you're paying for a pint of craft beer, a good glass of wine, that's really not too bad at all. And it does come from an estate with great pedigree. So 1 out of 1 so far. I'd definitely recommend this as a good start. It's got some competition though, because it's not the only Chardonnay on offer here in Newlands. There is this one as well. And this is an estate that I visited for the first time last year on the Absa Cape Epic as part of Dan's Epic Wine Route, JNB and the JNB Chardonnay. Now they've got the JNB Bubbles Chardonnay-based Cup Classique on their menu as well. What I really like about this estate is their Cab Franc. It's a slightly more expensive Cab Franc. It's about 350 rand a bottle. When I looked at it, I thought, gee, little estate in Robertson, 350 rand for a bottle of Cab Franc. I drank it and thought, gee, you guys could probably charge even more for this. It was a beautiful, beautiful bottle of wine. And I remember that I did taste the Chardonnay. I just can't off the top of my head remember exactly what it was like. I don't think it was unpleasant, but here's a chance to refresh my memory. Oh, that's a very, very different wine. The wines of Robertson are probably as underrated as any in the Cape. It's not quite as harsh as the first one. It's got a little bit more depth and structure to it. It's got a lovely soft finish. I think there's certainly some wood in there where there isn't in the first one, so it changes the nature of it. But all told, I do like that. And again, that's in that 50 to 60 rand glass category. I think that's pretty good value for a pretty nice wine. So from the Berger family at Rietvallei in Robertson to Franschhoek and the von Arnhem family. And it's Tuckwan who's the current cellar master, having taken over from his father. I've got really good memories of Haute Cabriere. I've had some superb meals down in their cellar. It's got a dark Gothic feel that's still strangely romantic. I've done a bit of sabrage and emerged with all of my fingers, surprisingly. They make some great bubbles in the Pierre Jourdain label. They also produced last year some alcoholic lollipops, which went down rather well over summer. And then there are their Pinot Noirs. Their top-end Pinot is particularly good. They also do the Chardonnay Pinot Noir that is much loved, again, particularly over summer. And then this. This is a very simple wine. It reminds me a little bit of the Argentinian fruit bombs, the wines they make that are big and fruity and luscious and made to be drunk pretty much immediately. With a red wine in South Africa, that's a little unusual. While we're guilty of drinking our white wine far too soon, they're already unbelievably 2019 Sauvignon Blancs on sale, which for me is madness. Our reds, we understand, we generally have to drink a little later. So a 2018 Pinot Noir, even though Pinot is softer and can generally be drunk a little sooner, still seems just a little early. But it's made deliberately in a style to be approachable as soon as it's made, and you can see it's almost got that sort of cool drink type look to it. It's a bright red colour, lots of cherry to that hue, and a wine that's not expensive, doesn't pretend to be, just pretends to be something you can have a nice easy glass of as soon as it's opened, which is what I'm doing now. And that's absolutely fine. It doesn't have the depth or the elegance of their higher end Pinot Noir, but it doesn't have the harshness you might anticipate for a red wine that came out less than a year ago. It's got plenty of fruit to it, a lot of cherry, almost a cherry cool drink feel. I suspect it's probably not quite as heavy in alcohol. There we go, 12.5%. So that lightness on colour is reflected in the lightness on the palate. And again, sitting down for a casual glass of wine, this is also 60 rand a glass. I think that'll do the job quite nicely. And then staying in Franschhoek, actually not too far from Haute Cabriere, head down the road, don't turn right into town, just go round the bend past the little square, and you'll head out to Boekenhotskloof, which you'll know best from the chocolate block. They also make the wolf trap, which is enormously popular and sells in vast amounts. And then this, which is the Porcupine Ridge, officially the Boekenhotskloof second label. One of the earlier wines I drank when I was in South Africa. I remember going out on a dinner date and dazzling my date with some wine. It was the Porcupine Ridge Syrah. Sadly, she liked the wine a lot more than she did me, so my memories are more of the wine than they are of her. But it was wine I enjoyed then because it's kind of what I'm looking for now. It wasn't too expensive on a student budget for a night out, and it was wine that I enjoyed. So this is 2017. It's only 2 years old. Syrah rather than Shiraz suggests they're going for a style that is a little bit lighter, and Boekenhotskloof have an absolutely outstanding Syrah. I remember when I started in the wine industry, John Matham, the wine doyen and Cape Talk presenter, who's one of the greatest people I've had the pleasure of working with in radio, reckoned that out of all of Franschhoek, the Boekenhotskloof Syrah was his favourite wine. This is obviously a level below it, but it's made by the same people. You'd expect a not dissimilar style, coming from the same area. It's a wine that should do the job very nicely. And again, it's not too dissimilar to the Haute Cabriere in that you can drink it a little sooner. It's certainly harsher than that Pinot Noir because it is still fairly young, even if it's a slightly lighter style and even if it is a Syrah. So ideally, you'd probably give it another year or two, and it just needs to soften a little bit, just ever so slightly tannic, but still, it's pleasant. And again, at 59 rand a glass, it will do the job comfortably, especially if you happen to be down in Newlands over winter. You're either heading off to watch the Stormers or Western Province or whatever they're called this week, or you're coming back after the game and it's pouring with rain and cold outside, as Cape Town can do in winter. I think this could warm you up with that much needed glass before you either head off to the rugby or head off next door to Bahari, the superb Indian restaurant they have here that I've eaten at a couple of times. So here we go. It's a simple collection of wine. There's nothing madly over the top, nothing pretending to be more than it is. I like the combination. They've each got something different to them, and based on your particular palate, I think you've got 4 glasses here that all in that 50 to 60 rand category will sort you out for that single glass of wine. Although, to be quite honest, I'd probably go for a whole bottle of something and make sure it's a pretty good meal all told. But there you go, there are your glasses to have a look at, as we will do next week as we did last week, trying to find some wine by the glass that does justice to both palate and budget. Cheers.